How effective were the athlete strikes? Well, they happened over a week ago and we're still talking about them, so clearly they made an impact. It's important to keep in mind the strikes were meant to show solidarity with protesters and the BLM movement and illustrate the universality of the movement itself and the cause they're fighting for. That was the goal and what we should measure the strike's success by, not the ability to create change overnight. The strikes also set the tone for future responses from professional athletes and sports leagues. This kind of bold, outspoken response will undoubtedly become the norm, which is a big new change and a big deal. I understand the frustration with athletes who speak out on politics. I generally roll my eyes when celebrities voice a political opinion, but athletes are different. They're larger role models for young boys and girls, and unlike actors and musicians, don't necessarily just live in New York or LA. Also, this isn't a political issue. It's a cultural one that many athletes grew up experiencing and still do to this day. This is their fight too.
Amid the wave of raucous protests that have hit America amid the summer of officer-involved shootings, the sports world has similarly erupted in uproar. But unfortunately, the uproar being shown by many sports players against police brutality is founded on shaky ground. For example, take the Milwaukee Bucks refusing to play their matches and instead staying in a locker room and issuing a petition for legislative reform of police brutality. In that moment, the Milwaukee Bucks have committed a violation of ethics, honor, and strategy. Let's be honest, when most people watch sports, they really do not want to hear politics. Sports is meant to be a reprieve from the stresses of life, not an introduction from them. But when you are holding a captive audience to a certain game and they do not get the game they want, anger happens and you do not further the cause for reform against what the players call police brutality. Also, when you sign a contract and you vow to do a certain job and you do not do it, you're also endeavoring in an ethics violation. For example, if instead of coming on here to talk to you, I began playing the ukulele, it would be essential. Yes, it might be funny, yes, but it would be a violation of ethics and the job I agreed to come on here to do. The Milwaukee Bucks is absolutely no exception. If anyone in any other job were simply just walk out and strike when they were meant to stay there, not as an accident, not as, well, I didn't show up, but literally negligently refused to do their job, they would get fired. And so not only is this an ethical issue, it's also a strategic issue. If the Milwaukee Bucks players truly want to reform the police system and truly want to ensure police brutality is not happening anymore, then why don't they simply use the power mustered about by their celebrity to go out and cause attention outside of the field, where they are protected 100% by the First Amendment and not bound by any employee contract? But of course, this does not appear to be in their DNA. It does not appear to be something they want to do. They appear to simply want to agitate for the sake of agitating and not do anything particularly effectively. But also, they are also causing harm to themselves, because by leaving their jobs, they are destroying their economic capital to fight against police brutality in other ways that may, again, have nothing to do with the field, but everything to do with the proceeds they collect by being players. They need to revise their strategy if we ever are going to have a chance of seriously and competently addressing these issues.
Hello and welcome back to another Millennial Minute. I'm Zaina Allen, and you've already heard from our guest, Christian Watson, host of the Pensive Politics podcast, and Nate Lerner, executive director of Build the Wave. So, gentlemen, I want to ask, should athletes keep protesting off the field?
Yeah, I think absolutely they should protest on and off the field. In fact, I think as we saw with Colin Kaepernick, it can be very effective on the field. But at the same time, we're also seeing athletes who are being more involved politically off the field. We're seeing LeBron James, for example, the actions he's taken to fight for voting rights, particularly in Florida, is really inspiring and really great to see. And something we actually haven't seen quite as much from professional athletes traditionally. If you remember, like Michael Jordan, for example, took a lot of heat back in the day for not being as involved. Yeah. He is now, but it's a little new for professional athletes in the U.S. to be so involved. But at the same time, it's not new for sports to make such a cultural impact. We've seen that happen in the Olympics frequently. In the 80s, for example, the Olympics didn't even happen. There's a big protest because of the Russians and all that. So, it's not new for sports to be involved in these cultural and political moments, but it is new for so many American professional athletes to take a stand, and I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. I was just watching the documentary, The Last Dance, so that's when I found out that there was a big controversy around that. But Christian, how about you?
Well, so I don't think the issue is should they be able to protest. Of course, everyone has a First Amendment right to protest. I don't have an issue with that. I have an issue with them violating their contract and holding a captive audience to a particular political position that they may not want to hear when they're trying to watch sports. That's what my problem is. So, of course, they can go out and protest. In fact, LeBron is doing something that I think more of these Milwaukee Bucks players should actually be doing. LeBron's actually using his celebrity to affect change in his way, a way that, regardless of if you agree with him or not, he is doing something with his celebrity on his time, on his dime, but they are not. So the issue is not should they protest. The issue is, well, why are they on their employer's dime and why are they violating their contract, which I think is much overshadows what they'd be protesting about.
Now, Christian, do you agree that the strike brought a necessary attention to a huge issue? And I say that because I know you said that why do all of this on their employer's dime. However, I think that there's a bigger issue, and that they felt as though the best way to hit somebody is, in their pockets. So do you feel that this strike brought a necessary attention?
Oh, yeah, I think that, well, so they'd be hitting the employers in their pockets and the employees of the leagues that they're playing in their pockets. And from what I understand, those people have not done anything to aggress the players. I mean, in fact, they have given the players PR time, they've given the players salaries or payments or commissions or whatever. They have given the players the economic capital they need to go back to their communities and make the change they want to make. So I don't think they should be revolting or relenting against their employers or the employees, many of whom have actually helped them and have actually blessed their lives in tremendous ways. If they want to revolt against the system, they ought to go and revolt against the system, but they should not do it in a way that, again, alienates an audience and increases the chance for them to take home more in the future by possibly getting them exterminated or fired.
Mm-hmm. And Nate, how about you? Do you think that this brought about more attention to these issues, or do you feel that it was kind of a waste of time?
I mean, protests are supposed to be inconvenient. They're supposed to cause problems. Where do we? I think when you complain about peaceful protests, it's kind of outrageous because we're seeing the response now when people are feeling frustrated when they're not heard. We see the violence, which is obviously very wrong. But at the same time, then you're condemning peaceful protests. It's like, well, what can people do then? And I get the frustration that sports is an escape. It's a leisure activity for folks who are watching at home. But at the same time, that's the goal of the athletes. They're using the power that they have. They're using the fact that they have a captivated audience to get their voice out. And that's really great. So many of us are very powerless in our day-to-day lives to create change. And these athletes are blessed. They're lucky to be in this position. And they're saying, yes, we see this movement, we see this cause, we recognize it's a problem, we want to be a part of it, we want to help using our influence and power as athletes, and they're doing that, and I think that's a great thing, and they're doing it in a responsible way. Maybe it's hurting their employer's bottom line, but guess what? Their employers are powerful white men who, really should be more involved in this cause, and the NBA actually has been more involved as a result, so it's working.
Mm-hmm. Now, Jared Kushner called the athletes involved, quote, entitled, and told them they should take action. What other action do you think they could take, Christian?
Well, okay, I don't speak for Jared Kushner or anything he says. But again, I think that the best thing for them to do, and I must dissent with Nate here, the best thing for them to do is simply to take their sentiments off the field, use their celebrity and economic capital like LeBron James is doing, and express them in a way, perhaps the halls of Congress, the halls of their state legislature, go to the NAACP, do something that is not A, endangering your employer's bottom line, or B, alienating an audience. So I have to push back against Nate a little bit here because I don't think that being powerful or rich or whatever should be a sort of punishment. In fact, the wealth and the riches of these powerful NBA owners or whatever league owner you might have is actually helping these young men. A lot of times these young African American or minority men get economic capital so they can take it back to their communities, take it back to their lives or whatever, and increase value for whatever cause they believe in. In this instance, the fight against police brutality. So I do not at all agree that because these people are powerful or rich at all, they have some sort of stake in this sort of victim thing going on. So I don't agree with that. My thing is very simple. You go out of the field. You do not have your stakes on anyone else's dime. You do not have a captive audience. You go out in the field, use your celebrity, and use that to create change. Do not punish people because they don't want to listen to politics or because you think that they should be woke. That's not right. That is not at all right on any level.
I can understand that completely. And Nate, how about you? What do you think that they could do outside of, taking action on the field?
Well, I think LeBron James has set a really great example. He's one of my. I think I make the argument he's better than Michael Jordan because he's more involved politically and culturally. And I think, granted, it's a different time now, but still, I really respect that a lot about him. He really does put his money where his mouth is. The NBA has taken strides. They talking a lot about how they're going to open up their arenas as voting locations, which is really fantastic. That's going to help a lot during COVID. It's going to help increase turnout, and I think that is a great example of what to do. But I just want to get to the point. The problem when you go off the field, that's great. They should be doing that, but at the same time, where they really have that power is playing. People want to see them play. People take time out of their day to see them play, and if they're not playing, that's causing a disruption. That's causing people to pay more attention to this cause, to realize, oh, this is actually like a big problem that's affecting these players. These players care about. Maybe I should care more about it. Maybe I should pay more attention to it. Again, protests are supposed to be disruptive. That's the entire point of this. And I think this is probably one of the best ways to peacefully disrupt the American economy, peacefully disrupt the American culture in sports culture, is by doing this. Because guess what? ESPN is talking about it. Fox Sports is talking about it. NBC Sports is talking about it. They wouldn't be talking about it if the players are doing it off the field. And that kind of awareness, that kind of influence, really can't be bought.
Yeah, I agree. Now, do you guys think that there will be more strikes? Christian, we can start with you.
Yes. I think that if you keep setting a bad precedent, bad things will continue to happen. And I think this idea that we need to disrupt American culture or the economy is, again, mistaken. It is sorely mistaken. Look, Americans are not the enemy here. The people who are feeding these players with money and economic capital and PR are not the enemy here. The enemy here is pretension and sanctimony. The enemy here is this idea that a particular political ideology is so correct and is just so palpable that it should be forced on everyone's throat. That is the enemy. So, I mean, you can have particular beliefs, and you can push those beliefs forcefully, but you should not push those beliefs in a context in which you vow to do something that has nothing to do with them, that is dishonorable, as unethical, and that has more implications than anything else, than anything that's being protested. Violating honor and violating ethics, two things which, again, the Black American families have prided and have instilled in people, and many Black American figures like John Lewis have preached. Those two things are basically the only currency you permanently have that is not given to you by anyone. And if you're going to sell off that currency and invalidate it and cancel it, we really don't have very much, and we don't even have room for a discussion. So this idea that we need to disrupt culture by violating honor is just ridiculous, in my opinion.
Okay, how about you, Nate?
That actually sounds like an argument for why they should do it. This is if they're disrupting the culture, if they have this power that's bestowed upon them through their playing power, and if they're not doing it, because of Trump, you never see them protesting over anything else. So the only time they've done this, it shows how powerful this moment is, how powerful this cause is, how important it is to them, how important it is to our culture and to our society. And I think, we are going to see more protests, absolutely, but you're not going to see it over, like a healthcare bill or a tax bill or because Trump said something dumb. It's going to be over this particular cause because the BLM movement, because holding police accountable, creating more transparency is a really important cultural cause that directly has impacted a lot of these players that they can relate to very strongly. And I think it's incredibly understandable that this particular moment is something they are rising up to. And I don't agree that they're shoving it down our throats. I think they're simply pointing out, like, this is a really big deal and we care about it and we want you to care about it too. And we are going to disrupt something that you enjoy to make you care about it and make you understand it. And that's just politics. That's just, how this works. And I think, it's unfair to say that they're being sanctimonious. That's really, incorrect. I think they're rising up to a unique moment in our culture and in our society right now.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you guys for both being here. You both brought up some great points. And thank you all at home for watching. Have a great day.